Hey, this is Sandy.
And Randy.
And we're here on AT Corner.
Being an athletic trainer comes with ups and downs, and we're here to showcase it all.
Join us as we share our world in sports medicine.
Welcome back to another episode of AT Corner. For this interview episode, we're going to be talking about a setting that definitely more ATs are starting to get into.
More ATs and the patient base is starting to understand it a little bit more too.
Yes, it definitely kind of follows with kind of how athletic training tends to go, right? You got to kind of educate people. Hey, here's what I do. Here are my skills as an athletic trainer.
So what are we talking about?
Yes, we are going to be talking about the military setting.
And the military setting, as we know it, is very vast. There are a lot of different settings within the military itself. So we're just going one branch. And this one specifically Marine Corps.
Yes, and I was going to say probably even one unit in this one branch. Because as we learned from this interview is just how unique just the military setting is based on just the unit you work with.
And we couldn't do it without a very special guest. Randy, you want to introduce her?
Yes, we are interviewing Liz Antosz. She got her Bachelor's of Science in Athletic Training at Illinois State University, her Master's in Arts and Kinesiology at San Jose State University. She has been certified for 9 years. She currently works with the Marine Corps as a contracted athletic trainer, but previously she worked at San Diego State University, UC San Diego, and Santa Clara University.
I think what I like best about this interview is it's a setting that I probably never would have looked into, but we just go into just how vast athletic training is, and it's really intriguing what we can do with this profession.
Yes, absolutely. And the best part for me is just being able to get an idea of just what you do as an athletic trainer within the military, or at least, maybe a general idea. Because again, it can be different depending where, like, who you're working for, what branch, what unit. So just getting that idea, like, I feel a little more educated on it. I feel like I can be a little bit more helpful, as, a mentor.
Mm-hmm. So without further ado, let's hear from Liz. Randy, you want to kick us off?
Yes, we're going to start with our cryo breakers. And we got to start from the very beginning. What made you become an athletic trainer?
So back in high school, I was a soccer player. And I think it was maybe my junior year, sophomore or junior year, I pulled my groin, and like I knew that there were people, at our games, medical professionals. I didn't really know like in what capacity, like who they were, but my coach was like, "Oh, you need to go to the athletic trainer." So I was like, "All right." So didn't really know what to expect, and my high school athletic training room was like kind of in like the basement of the school, like in this like hidden dark corner. But I went in there, and I think at the time there was 2 athletic trainers. Murphy was his last name. He's still there, I'm pretty sure, because actually someone I went to undergrad with ended up working with him. But yeah, so I started doing rehab for my groin and started feeling better, and just kind of talking with them and BSing all the time. He would always mess with me. I feel like it kind of comes with the territory to be an athletic trainer. Like, you kind of have to be able to talk shit a little bit. So like we just had a good time in there. And, I started asking him questions like, what does this entail? Like, what's your job like? Asking him all this different stuff. So I was an athlete and I played in band, super nerdy, but I wanted to do some like observation. So he let me kind of work around that busy schedule. Had me cover a wrestling match, which like the first 5 minutes, someone was like bleeding everywhere. And I remember like the other students like having stuff in their pockets and stuff. And I was like, whoa, like I didn't know like this was happening. Like I didn't even realize this was a thing. So just got super interested in it right away, started looking at schools, and then it just kind of all came from there.
Nice. That's awesome.
Okay, how cool that you had 2 athletic trainers at the high school. I feel like in California out here, that's unheard of unless you're like a big private school.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there were two. I don't know if there was maybe like a full-time and a part-time.
Hmm.
I definitely worked with the one guy primarily, but there was like a little gang of high school students that were helping him out. But I was like, I didn't know that anyone was doing stuff like this. So, and they seemed like they do that. They were doing that all the time, like putting hours in all the time. So, I kind of just did, you know, what I could with my schedule. And then when I started going on college visits, I started asking about like sports medicine programs, and ended up going to Illinois State, which has a really great program. I got super lucky because I kind of just like made the decision. I didn't know they built this whole new facility and everything was like brand new and awesome. And I was like, all right, cool. This is really cool. So yeah, it all worked out.
It also goes to show, like, I always tell my students, you want to make a really good first impression with your student athletes. And especially you talking about like the dark basement, like
The classic high school kind of vibe.
right.
Right.
If you wouldn't have had a good first impression, who knows how you would have stumbled upon the profession later, you know?
Right. For sure. Yeah. And I remember too, like after that, just noticing more that I was like, oh, they're like at everything. And like it really just flew under the radar in my mind for the longest time because I just didn't even realize what it
Yeah.
was. So but yeah, I shout out to Murphy. I don't remember his first name, but he's definitely still there. He's a really like he's a chill guy. He's got a tongue ring. And I was like, this guy is super chill. I'm like, this job seems awesome. Like, I love sports. I'm like, he's got a good vibe going. And yeah, I was like, I can do this. This seems pretty like relaxed.
That's awesome.
That's awesome to hear too. Like at the high school level, like it really does show the high school ATs out there. Like you make an impact early on in someone's life, and look, it sets you up to where you are now.
Yeah, for sure.
So speaking about where you are now, we always ask, what is your athletic training spirit animal? And this is just another question to get to know you. It's a modality, rehab tool, tape, brace, any tool of the trade really that represents you as a clinician.
Yeah, so I was asked this question once before in an interview, like forever ago, and I never like had thought about it, so it really caught me off guard. For some reason, I said hand sanitizer at that time.
Oh,
So yeah, which like I was really just like making a stretch, like trying to make that work as it was coming out of my mouth. But having a little more time to think about it, I think I have to go with Sam Splint.
Ooh,
that's a
Just
new one.
yeah, strong, sturdy, reliable. You kind of like gotta have one. I've noticed in different settings, like even the corpsmen, they carry them around, obviously. And I'm just like, that's like a necessity in my mind. And I feel like I'm a strong, reliable athletic trainer, maybe a little bit pliable, a little versatile.
of course.
But
I really
that's what
like
I
that.
Yeah,
got.
that's a good
That's the
one.
best I can come up with.
That's pretty good.
Well, it's also like you were talking about with, athletic trainers are everywhere, but they are kind of under the radar. It's like, okay, you have your Sam Splint in your kit, but like you probably, if someone opens your kit, the first thing they're noticing is you like tape or something.
Yeah, you don't
But the Sam always there.
old reliable.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. Old reliable.
So the military setting's still fairly new for athletic trainers. So there's a lot of people itching for some stories to kind of see what it's like. So before we get into the main meat of what we're talking about, can you give us a story, an experience, or maybe a case study about working with the Marine Corps? And this can be something that's funny, a serious, maybe a life hack, anything like that.
Yeah. I mean, the first one that kind of comes to mind is it's just a short story, but it's kind of funny. I was just getting started here, and my coworkers, we kind of take on different roles. And my one coworker, she was having a meeting with like all of the higher up people on base. So we can get more into detail about it later, but we're hired by like a specific like group of Marines. They're called 3rd MLR, which is Marine Littoral Regiment. So that group has hired us, and we work for them and their unit. So even though there's other, groups and units on the base, we don't treat everybody. We just treat the people in 3rd MLR. So anyways, she takes me to this meeting, and it's the lieutenant colonel, like who everyone's waiting for. And we're sitting at this huge desk at the headquarters building. And I think I had only been here for a couple weeks, but he walks in and everyone, like someone screams like, "Attention on deck!" And everyone stood up except for me. And I'm like, by the time I stood up, everyone already sat down. So I was like, what? Like super awkwardly. And I was like, okay, I'm definitely not used to that. Like I used to go talk to my coaches in my sweatpants and like put my feet up on their couch. So definitely was like a different environment. But yeah, just stuff like that, getting used to. And a coworker of mine, he will try to get out to different ranges and just kind of see what they're doing, like see how people are getting hurt, or when they say, you know, I got hurt out the range, like what does that look like? So he got us into some range, or I guess some guys were camping out on another base. They'll go and like camp out places for like a couple weeks at a time or for like a few days, and it's basically like simulating what they would do if they were deployed. So we were just going out there to just check it out. Didn't really know what to expect, but he had me we have like helmets and flags that we bring with us when we do stuff like that. So we get there and like all these people are camped out all over. I'm like, oh, they're like sleeping out here. Like they've been out here for a little while. So we see the guy that invited us to go there, and he's like, oh yeah, come follow me. And we start going like through a forest basically, because I'm like, what are we like getting into right now? And so we had to like hike up this steep hill, and I've got the helmet and the flak on. I'll have to send you guys a picture from that day, but
yes, please.
yeah, we're looking out. It's this huge range, like just set up, you know, they've got like a building that's maybe like an empty building, and there's like hills and this and that. And like same type of thing, I didn't really know what to expect. Sometimes we'll go to groups to talk about what we do, you know, try to get them to come to us. Some of them don't even realize that we exist. So we're like, hey, this is where we are, this is what we do, maybe do like a mobility session. But like out of nowhere, where we just hiked up, this group of like 20 Marines came like screaming with rifles, and then like took all these like crazy positions and started shooting like at these targets. And I'm like on the side like, holy shit, like this is crazy. So like I just didn't expect that. So we were like on the actual range, and they were doing those drills, and like people get hurt doing that stuff. So super informative, really cool to see if you're into that type of stuff. But yeah, those are like some of my favorite stories so far in the past year and a half. But I will say, I know you guys are going to ask about probably the capacity that we're out in the field. We don't go out into the field that often, at least in my job. So like that story sticks out a ton to me. I don't think that like is everyone's experience. It might be some people who work in the military. It might be their, you know, weekly or everyday experience, but that's something that we're working on, is going out into the field more.
Nice.
Actually, piggybacking off of that, what is your role in the Marine Corps?
So the Marine Corps hired us as a part of an initiative. It's called SMIP. So that stands for Sports Medicine Injury Prevention. So that's our primary role, is injury prevention. We hold weekly classes that are like mobility classes. We have a knee class, a shoulder class, ankle class, low back class. And those are just kind of open to anyone in the units that we treat. They can just come in and attend those classes. And it's like they were never there. Like you just come in and then you leave. Good to go. Try to teach them, you know, new techniques and things that they can use. Other things we do is like education type things. We can, if a unit, let's say a group is going through, they do different types of trainings, and they want to do, let's do a class on recovery, you know, how much, just kind of basic information, like you should be drinking this much water, this is how much sleep you should be getting, things to eat, and, you know, just kind of basic information. Do a warm up, like make sure you do a cool down, stretch. Like some of them, I swear they've never stretched in their entire lives. So it's a lot of that, but then we also operate as a clinic. So what's nice is they don't need a referral to come to us. So we're green side is Marines and blue side is Navy. So
Okay.
Marines fall under blue side medical, if that makes sense. So they're taken care of by the Navy. So like Navy corpsmen and things like that. So we're the first that I'm aware of. I'm sure there's other professionals that work on for the Marines, but we're the first like green side medical asset that they've hired on their own through an outside
Hmm.
contracting company. So what's nice is we can kind of document the same as they would if they were to go to the clinic and see one of the Navy medical professionals. So we can get everything documented. They don't need a referral to come in. We can normally see people that week, sometimes that day. We've got, the capacity to take on all of these people. So we're just trying to draw people in and just do as much injury prevention, but we're also doing like post-ops and things like that and getting people back ready for deployments.
Nice. That's awesome. So what does like just a regular kind of day would look like from start to finish? Or like what does that day look like for you?
So the best part is we work 06 to 1400. So 6 to 2, Monday through Friday, no weekends. I'm going to glorify that because that's like by far the best work-life balance I've ever had. But just day-to-day operation, like I start seeing patients at 6.
Okay.
And they all have, I mean, what's nice is we're contractors. There's 4 of us and we all have, well, 3 of us have our masters. 3 of us have our strength and conditioning certs, but we're all certified athletic trainers. But we kind of have the freedom to build out our schedule the way we want, I guess. So like if I want to double book 2 people at 6, or let's say I have 3 knee patients, like let me just get them in here at the same time. It's flexible in that way, but I just kind of have a consistent schedule unless there's something where I'm going out in the field, which to us that I would say that's maybe 5% of my job. So not very much. And again, that's different like with every military job. But yeah, I'm just working kind of like a clinic based job, but I go crazy like being inside for too long. So I'll be like, all right, let's do a pool workout. Like, let's go to the track. And you've got the freedom to do that. There's hit boxes all over the base. So you can definitely like get outside and switch things up. But it's the first time in my career where I'm like, I've got a schedule. Like I've got this person for the whole hour. And like, I'm used to having like 12 athletes like sharing tables and doing all this crazy stuff, but it's like very low key, very mellow. I don't feel like I've ever been like overwhelmed in the way that I've been like working at the college level. So it's super nice in that way. And then to we'll sometimes have communication with doctors and stuff like that, but it's nowhere near the capacity that I'm used to like at the college level.
Okay. And plus having those weekends off, that I mean, you can't put a price on that sometimes.
Unbelievable. Like completely unmatched. Like I'm done at 2:00. I'm in Hawaii. And then yeah, I can plan stuff over the weekend. I'm like, this is nuts. Like this, how does this exist?
That is nice.
Yeah, that is nice.
You talked a little bit about how you said there are different parts of the military. Do you know how different it is for each aspect? Like for your job versus like another certified athletic trainer in a different spot?
Yeah, I think it's just different everywhere. Even from what I've heard through our contracting company, because they've got athletic trainers in Japan, they've got athletic trainers in South Carolina. Like that's kind of all over the place. And I think even like within our own company, it's different. It's kind of just like the needs of the units that you're working for. I have a friend that's working with the Navy right now. I know they've got where he's at. They've got a lot of really nice equipment. They've got tons of their like whole team is just insane with they've got people to like, do research and analyze data and strength and conditioning specialists and like it's just different everywhere you go. Or like, here they kind of gave us the bottom floor of a super old building and they're like build it out. So like, it's kind of just different all over. Or you can get this like brand new magnificent facility in other places. So I know some people, they're out in the field all the time. Other people aren't in the field at all. I've seen people travel. Two of my coworkers, they went to 29 Palms for one of the trainings that they were doing. So it's, at least in our role, it's kind of like whatever you put into it and like whatever you try to make of it, that's what you're gonna get. So it's relatively new on this base. So we're kind of just figuring it out.
Nice. That's awesome. You already kind of touched on some of those benefits and like kind of the differences, but what else does the military setting provide that maybe the traditional setting doesn't really give you?
Yeah, I think in regards to like patient care and things like that, I've never felt more respected. We've got, Marines they are just hard workers. Like they don't, pain is like not a thing to them. Like that's not a factor
Mm-hmm.
that they really factor in a lot of the times. They kind of are just like, I'm gonna go until I can't, type
Mm-hmm.
of thing. I would say a big thing that you don't, I guess it depends on where you are, but I felt like at the college level, I felt like my whole team was coming in all the time. Whereas here, we're like, hey guys, like we got massage guns and heat pads and all this stuff. Like, come check it out. There's kind of like a stigma around it, because of the mentality of being a Marine, being able to work so hard and endure so much, and all of that type of stuff, which I totally understand. So a lot of
Mm-hmm.
them are, like, oh, I don't know, like this might make me look weak, or like I don't need that, like I can push through it. So that's like a big thing that I've noticed. And two, like I said, once I do have patients in there, they're just so respectful. Um, they'll do whatever you tell them to do. Like they will put full trust in like you are a professional. Like you went to school for this, you know what you're talking about, and I'm gonna follow everything you say, and I'm probably gonna say yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, all of that type of stuff. Which like you don't get that everywhere, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you work at schools where maybe there's a little bit of entitlement and things like that, and I just have not experienced that one time.
I feel like that trust thing too is a very big military thing. Like you gotta trust the person next to you, you know. So I feel like getting that trust, like them, like okay, yeah, yes, ma'am, I'm gonna do that. You know, I think that's just a military thing too.
For sure, I totally respect it because they like I'll have a guy come in and like let's say they've been having knee pain for like 8 months. Like it's not
Mm-hmm.
shocking if they come in. I'm like, when did this start? They're like 2021. I'm like, all right, like let's let's trace it back. Let's trace it back. Um, but I had a guy that came in and he's like, yeah, my knee's been bugging me. It's been a long time. This happened like months and months ago. And I evaled him and I was like, I think you like may have like sprained or torn like your ACL, and it ended
Oh
up
wow.
being partial tear. He had like a posterolateral corner tear and a partial ACL tear, and he was just trucking along like this isn't a problem at all, like rucking up and down hills with the 80-pound pack. And I'm just like, I don't know if I can swear, but there's some tough motherfuckers. Like they go through, they push their bodies to the limit. And I'll have guys like, especially the older guys for sure, if it's, let's say like a hip labral tear, something that's like, it's going to give you problems one way or another. They'll be like, I'm going on this deployment in April and there's nothing that you can do to stop me. And I'm like, for me, that's motivating as hell. I'm
Yeah.
like, well, yeah, like let's do it. Like let's start right now. So that's definitely like a big thing. It's a big part of their culture. And I think too, like once they actually see that it's not like, I'm not going to have you on a table doing clams the whole time. Like I've got experience. I've worked with
Mhm.
athletes. Like, let's get you moving. Like, let's get you back to lifting weights. They're starting to see through that trust of like, okay, she doesn't want to hold me out. She wants me to keep going.
So on the flip side of that, what are some challenges that are unique to the military setting?
Um, there's some challenges for sure. I'd have to say like some of the other medical things, like they're treating so many people, like how I talked about we're with specific units. like physical therapy and just like seeing a doctor in general can be a huge challenge. Not a huge challenge, but just take a little bit longer than you would expect sometimes. But when you think about how many people, you know, the at the hospitals and things like that, like they're seeing spouses
Hmm.
and kids of service members and things like that. So um, that can be a thing that's frustrating sometimes, is maybe like, you know, with that guy's knee with like the partial ACL, it took a while to get an MRI and things like that, and it just kind of takes a little bit longer. Not that things are necessarily like an emergency all the time, but it's just one of those things. Like I'm used to working at the D1 level where I'm like, we need an MRI stat, like let's get you know. So it's just different for each setting, but that's definitely one thing that like things can just take a while. Another thing that we can sometimes come across is like, you know, maybe there was a kid that got hurt right away, like straight out of boot camp, has back pain, and you know, they may have been going to medical, and medical's like, try going to physical therapy, and then they come back and then let's do an x-ray, and they go through all of these steps and it takes a long time, and like it's kind of like they're on their way out at the same time. Like if it depends on what it is, but like there's times where guys get hurt and they're not getting you know, maybe they didn't have access to us right away, or they went on a deployment right. I'll have a guy say like, I hurt my back and then I went on an 8-month deployment. So like just some things like that you can't control. Like I might be in the middle of a rehab and then they're like, I gotta go for 6 months, and I'm like, shit, let me try to teach you as much as I can, you know,
Yeah.
or text me like wherever you're at and I'll try to help you out. So there's definitely parts that make it challenging.
Wow, that's crazy. Just rehab stopped. I gotta go. I gotta go here now.
I know sometimes I'll think about some of my patients. I'm like, they're only 5 months post-op. Like, how are they doing? I'm just like thinking like of them sleeping on the ground somewhere with like their shoulder or whatever. And I'm like, there's some crazy people, but I gotta respect it for sure. I have a lot of respect for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that puts a wrench in your rehab plan.
Yeah.
I know, right? And you know they're not doing that when they're in the field.
No.
They're not
Oh,
doing
No.
no.
they're not doing lateral walks out there like in Japan.
Is there anything that you feel like the military setting provides that the traditional setting does not? I know you said like the traditional setting, let's say you can get an MRI really fast, but what's the opposite of that for military?
Yeah, I think honestly I think the thing that you can't get is just that level of grit. I think it depends on what you're doing. Like I've worked a little bit of hockey and like they got grit too for sure. But like just all those different settings, like I've never had people so receptive and trusting of what I'm doing. And just, you know, I'm going to listen to this person and I'm going to work as hard as I can. And I feel like a lot of the times in my past experiences, sometimes I felt like I was pulling teeth to like get people to do stuff. Not that they're all perfect or anything like that, but I think that and the work-life balance, like for me, I was getting to a point. I was getting to a
Yeah.
point in my career working for college. I mean, Randy knows we had a short stint together at a very like chaotic place, you know, and it's that's the nature of athletic training, and I think a lot of us love that about athletic training. But I was ready to like, I need to breathe for a little bit. So
So, on that note, is there anything about the traditional setting that you kind of look back and like, yeah, I kind of miss that?
oh, for sure. I miss like the team aspect. Not that there isn't a team aspect, there definitely is. Um, but I think just like being in the locker room before a game, like those were some of my favorite moments for sure. Is like just having
Hmm.
fun with the team. I really love like first aid. I don't know what it is, but I love like my lacrosse team would bleed every day, like every single day, and I love doing all that type of stuff. You know, kind of being under pressure a little, running onto the field and not knowing what you're gonna see. Like I liked that type of response and things like that. Out here, it's like the corpsmen do all of that. Like if someone's ankle is
Mm.
sideways, they're gonna, you know, splint them up, send them off, and kind of take care of all of that. We pretty much get them. We'll sometimes get people hobbling in, like this just happened, but for the most part, it's like, the injuries has already happened. So I definitely miss the response. I miss the first aid, and then just like wild, crazy music blasting in the locker room. Those are the moments that I miss for sure.
So, what really got you interested in the military setting? Was it like something that you had initiated, or something that you had wanted, or kind of got bored of the traditional setting, or how did you make that switch?
It's something that I always have been interested in, and throughout the years I've tried to get into some of those opportunities, and like a lot of the times I wouldn't even get a response back. Or for whatever reason the military setting likes you to have your CSCS. And that's something that I didn't have until this last October. So that was another, like, some places would reach out and say things like that. But I had a good job, I felt, at San Diego State, so I wasn't really in a rush to go anywhere. But what kind of made the switch, so my girlfriend, she's in the Coast Guard. She's actually a deep sea diver. And so we met in San Diego. Yeah, she's got tons of crazy stories too. You guys have
Oh,
to
I can imagine.
no. But yeah, we were together for about 2 years, and she's like, I know you have your job here. I know you love your team. But like, do you want to basically go on this next adventure together? And she was going to Hawaii. So I was like, sounds like a really good idea. But, all of my experience was in the college setting for the most part. Like I worked primarily D1 my entire career. So I was like, UH is pretty much the only school that I knew of. And I know their volleyball athletic trainer, she's an OG. I was like, there's no way she's going anywhere. I don't think they have lacrosse. But I was like, man, I don't know, like, if I'm going to be able to find a job. And so the minute she got orders and she was like, I'm going to Hawaii, I like just started job hunting, like went online, found the job that I have now, and I like submitted my resume right away, and they called me like that day. So
Oh, wow.
their athletic trainer had like just left, and they were looking for somebody. Like the timing was just absolutely perfect.
Wow.
So I actually like secured my job before all of her stuff was even like set. Because for a minute there, she was like, I might not even be like going for sure, because anything can change with the military.
Right.
And I was like,
Right.
well, I have a job there now. So, and I quit San Diego State. So, but yeah, it lined up perfectly. I actually started working before she did. But yeah, I love it. It's been awesome so far.
Man, that's awesome. What a crazy way how it just all worked out.
I know. And I took a lot of pride because I felt like a lot of people that, could like just jump ship and be like, I'm overwhelmed, like I'm out. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
no, I'm lined up, guys. Like I'm good. I'm gonna leave, give you enough time to find somebody new, and I'm gonna leave calmly and just go like live the island life. And so, but yeah, it all worked out. I got super lucky. My family always says I have a horseshoe up my ass, and it's been proven to be true multiple times. And like that was just one of those instances where I'm like, everything lined up. I didn't have a gap between jobs, and I've been out here and just doing my thing.
Wow.
Wow, that's crazy. That's awesome. So you talked about how like the military's healthcare system, right? There's a lot of professionals that they work with. And like you said, each unit kind of has their own interaction with ATs. As far as like working with the other healthcare professionals within the military, like are they pretty receptive about working with you and like understand what you do and have that respect for you as an athletic trainer?
It's kind of a mixed bag. I have doctors that I work awesome with, and I have like the relationship that I would have like I did at the college level. There's a shoulder specialist, for example, that I've sent a few of the Marines to him, and he's operated on them. He's actually let me come and observe some of those surgeries
Nice.
as well, which like I love getting in the OR. So like that's been a really awesome relationship. I wouldn't say there's any like pushback per se or anything like that. One thing that we did encounter was with the physical therapists on base, they wanted to see people post-op because they just wanted to have like eyes on those people, and they didn't want to have too much, too many cooks in the kitchen type of thing. But I don't think that's like I don't feel like they disrespected, our profession. It's kind of just open communication of like, hey, what should we do about this, type of thing. But it's just different with each doctor is kind of the best way that I can put it. We've had a few of them come in and like actually check out our facility and be like, oh, cool, like you guys have this, this, and this. And then anything musculoskeletal that crosses their path, they're sending people straight to us. Like, oh, you rolled your ankle, athletic trainers. Oh, you did this, athletic trainers, like based off of what unit they're in. And they're just sending people over. So it really just depends. But we will get the mix up sometimes. Some of the surgeons, like if they're part of a unit that we treat, they may not know that we even exist, or, whatever the case is. So they'll just send them to physical therapy. But like I said, the problem with that is sometimes they get so busy that maybe they can't see them for a month, or maybe it's a post-op ACL, but they can only see them once a week, which to me, like, I feel it should be more than that. So it's kind of just part of being here the past 2 years, like I said, is like getting the word out, trying to tell the doctors like, hey, you can just send people right over, making sure the units know like this is where we're located, you can walk in anytime, and kind of just like spreading the word, and trying to get as many people in to see us.
Nice.
You got anything else before we do action?
Nope. Well, the action item's perfect because military is all about action.
It is.
Let's get rocking. So, go ahead.
So for our action item, we're asking you, what advice would you give someone who is interested in working with the military?
I would say just be persistent. Like I said, before this opportunity, I remember, I wasn't like actively pursuing like I want a military job, but when I would see one here and there, I would kind of put my resume in. I think what was most helpful for me was to talk to people who were already in the profession and kind of get an idea of like, what are they looking for. Kristen, who I think you reached out to recently, I talked to her, kind of got some advice from her, and she's the one that told me too, a lot of them look for CSCS and things like that. So I think if you can just talk to somebody who's familiar with the field, it's just one of those things. Like, I don't know why can be a challenge to get into the community, but I feel like once you're kind of in that realm, it opens up a ton of doors. So I would just say stay persistent, and then just try to communicate with people who have some of that experience or maybe advice on the process.
Nice. That's awesome.
Awesome. The military is something that I will probably never get into, but that was so fascinating to hear.
Yes, I learned a lot from being able to just hear how unique the military setting is. So now that, like, even though I may not be interested in like maybe pursuing that setting, I can at least somewhat answer questions, like if a student's interested, or to help give them an idea of like, hey, here's what I've heard, here's what you need to further like look into.
Well, it's also cool to go into like the different settings, not only within athletic training, but also within the military. It can be different.
I think that was one of the most interesting things I learned, is just how different it is, not only between branches, but also between units. Mm-hmm. So like, I thought that was pretty crazy, just how unique just each within the military setting it is.
So I'm sure that we have a lot of athletic trainers who are also involved in the military setting, or someone who wants to get involved in the military setting. So if you're one of those people, or if you just want to join the discussion, make sure you head over to our Facebook group, facebook.com/group/AT Corner Podcast. There's only one question to get in, and we'll post every week about question of the week, or we'll post an episode thread where you can comment on the episode and kind of get the feel of what other people are saying, not just us.
Yes, absolutely.
And then if you guys are new, we do every other episode as education or stories. This one was an education episode. Next week, we are going back to our stories, where again, you can find those stories, what's going to pop up soon, either on our Facebook group or where we're more active on our Instagram, where we post prompts within the Instagram stories.
Yes.
And we just gather experiences from athletic trainers, I would say all over the nation, but now all over the world.
That's right. We are international.
All over the world, experiences from athletic trainers on various topics. So make sure to, I think you can actually turn on post notifications for the people who haven't actually gotten a chance to submit a story when we post the prompts. But yeah, other than that, I think that's all I have.
Yep. Thank you for helping us showcase athletic training behind the tape. Bye.